Ladies, gentlemen, welcome to this first ever international conference on astro-object physics. Woo! Tonight's theme,
the universe.
Oh, I know, some of you might be thinking, well, that sounds rather ambitious. But do not underestimate the immense evocative powers of the emerging field of astro-object physics. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to embark on a wild adventure that will take you to the four corners of the table and even beyond.
Quack, 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 quack. Quack, 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 quack.
Legendary figures. Fundamental questions. And even a few scandalous revelations. Are you ready?
Yes.
Ready.
Let's take off.
Discovering Shadow presents a brief history of time.
Act 1. Humanity has always wondered, always sought to understand the world it lives in. Doubting, thinking, experimenting. For early man, one thing was clear. Earth was flat. So we thought that if you went all the way to the borders of the world, so our story starts in antiquity, 500 BC. Antiquity. Athens. Philosophy. Democracy. The Parthenon. fashion togas. And one of the Western world's foremost philosophers, Aristotle. Now, unlike his masters, Socrates and Plato, Aristotle was not an idealist. He was more a taking care of business kind of guy, you know? His mom always said, "Follow your passion, Ari. Do what you love." So Aristotle became a philosopher. But as we all know, philosophy is not really an actual job. So Aristotle had to make ends meet somehow. Mostly by working as a freelancer on insanely underpaid contracts with impossible deadlines. Why did I go to business school? So between procrastination and panic attacks, Aristotle's typical Friday night might have looked something like the ancient Greek version of ordering $100 of takeout food and binge watching Netflix. It was on one of those not so glorious nights that Aristotle made a startling discovery. Earth isn't flat. It's round. Look, Mom, I discovered something. Aristotle, everyone. Now, let's move ahead to the Renaissance. The Renaissance. Florence. Venice. Ooh, murderous popes. Leonardo da Vinci. And a Polish astronomer by the name of Nicholas Copernicus. Copernicus was a good boy, raised to do well in school, find a steady job, and become as rich and bitter as his father. One day, he started thinking outside the box. He looked up at the sky, and he never looked back. And from that point on, Copernicus spent his life repeating the same old thing over and over again. It's not the earth at the center of the universe, it's the sun. The sun at the center of the universe. The sun at the center of the universe. The sun at the center. But since speech therapists hadn't been invented yet, no one quite understood what he was trying to say. Copernicus, everyone! To further expand our vision of the world, we needed one man. The man, known as the father of modern physics.
Galileo! Galileo!
Please put your hands together for your favorite program. Ladies and gentlemen, cardinals and officials, I'm your host, Pope Urban VIII, and welcome to Rome's biggest late-night game show. The real Trivial Pursuit that set Europe ablaze. A game where a lot is at stake, or you may burn on it. One contestant, 3 questions, 3 loud yeses, and your fate is secure. If you challenge our views or you speak out the truth, tortures and trials will make a martyr of you. Ladies, gentlemen, welcome to the Inquisition! Welcome to this week's episode of The Inquisition. A game where everyone's a winner if you believe in Christ our Lord and Savior. And a helpful reminder to all our folks watching at home that if you want to speak your mind, better make sure it's my mind as well. That is, unless you want to end up on this show one day. Or die. Whichever comes first. Now, let's welcome our first contestant. He's a good friend of mine, so let's give him a warm welcome. Almost as warm as the flames he'll probably burn in. So, give me an O. O. Give me an E.
E.
It's Galileo Galilei. All right, welcome, Mr. Galileo. This game is very simple. I'm going to ask you 3 very simple questions. If you answer all 3 of them correctly, you get to walk out of here with a brand new Holy Bible and the salvation of your soul. Sound good? Oh, I'm getting confirmation here that tonight's Bible is a luxury edition, courtesy of a promising new startup, the Presses of Gutenberg. We wish them success in this new business venture. Now, if you happen to answer incorrectly, so, Galileo, you're my friend, you know I like you, so I'll give you a foolproof trick. Listen up at home, might come in handy one day. Always answer yes. All right, let's start with question 1. Mr. Galileo, do you believe in the Holy Trinity? God, our Holy Father, Jesus Christ, his Son, reborn for mankind, and the Holy Spirit, as is written in the Holy Bible. Amen.
Absolutely.
All right, starting off strong. Okay. All right. Let's move right ahead to question 2. Mr. Galileo, do you believe that God created the universe in 6 days and then rested on the 7th day, as is written in the Holy Bible? Amen.
Absolutely.
All right, okay. I mean, you're doing fantastic. The crowd is going wild. Anyway, now, time for the grand finale. Question 3. Mr. Galileo, for a brand new Holy Bible and the salvation of your soul, do you believe that God created the universe, placing Earth at the center, and the sun and the other stars of the cosmos revolving around it, as is written in the Holy Bible? Amen. So yeah, basically Galileo pisses off the Pope, so he gets exiled, and his theory is buried for the next 150 years. Galileo, everyone! Act 2. Where am I? In our next chapter of a scientific journey, we're going to need to move to a land far, far away. swinging 60s. The 1660s. Meet the Royal Society for Natural Sciences. Paul, George, Ringo, and Isaac Newton. Yeah, there was a whole boy band of scientists trying out new ideas in that day. But Newton was such an attention whore that he made sure no one remembered any other name but his. The Royal Society quickly rose to stardom, becoming something like the rock stars of physics. Newton is mostly famous for discovering the 3 laws that govern the motion of objects. The first law is inertia. Any object moves in a straight line forward at constant speed, unless it gets hit by an outside force. Their first single. Oh yeah, I tell you something, I think you'll understand. Did you know that when an object moves, it always goes straight? Yeah, it always goes straight. And at a constant speed. Okay, and then of course there's the second law. A stronger force will make the object accelerate more. But the same force on a more massive object will have less impact. Two, law number two says that a greater force will make you speed up even more. And then there's the third law. Every action creates a reaction. For every action, there comes a reaction, oh yeah, an equal, an opposite reaction, whoa. And then, of course, Newton is mostly famous for discovering the theory of gravity. My personal favorite. One day, it came to me, every apple wants to fall to the earth, and the earth is trying to reach the sun, making this world a little closer. So, all is well for Newton and his band. But this perfect story was about to take an unexpected turn. Newton became obsessed with a new kind of scientific idea that was about to challenge the very idea of objective truth. He was quickly so absorbed by this elegant and evidently more mature theory that he forgot all about his boy band. Hello, goodbye, hello, goodbye. Yeah, that one's a bit more abstract, right? Okay, let's unpack it together. All right, for that, I'll need you to close your eyes. But actually do close your eyes, okay? Because at some point it'll be a bit long and you'll be like, clearly, I'm the only guy that still has their eyes closed, so you open them to check. And then for one, you'll be humiliated because I can see you with your eyes open. And also, you won't really get it because it's easier when your eyes are closed. So just close your eyes. Okay. Now, imagine that you're lying in your bed and you fall asleep. A deep, deep sleep.
When you wake up, your bed has disappeared. Your room too. Actually, everything has disappeared. You are standing in a vast, empty void. I know, it's weird. We'll come back to that. Now, can you tell if you are in motion or not? For example, are you standing still or are you tilting slightly to the right?
Now, usually when we say we're in motion, we mean that we're moving towards or away from something. So in the void, without any reference point, it's quite impossible to know if we're moving or not, right? Okay, keep your eyes closed.
You are still in the void, but suddenly, your bed reappears, and it slowly starts to move away from you. There's now another object in the void. So, can you tell if it's you or the bed that's moving?
Okay, usually, even when we add another object in the void, it's still pretty much impossible to know if it's us or the other thing that's moving, right? Last example, keep your eyes closed.
The bed disappears, and suddenly the sun appears, and it slowly starts to move away from you. You're face to face with the sun in an empty void. Yes, I told you it would be weird. So, can you tell if it's you or the sun that's moving? Or maybe both?
Now, for this last example, some people might be thinking that since the sun is much bigger, so a lot harder to move than us, there's good chances that we're actually the ones in motion. But actually, it's the same thing as with the bed, right? No matter the size of the object, we can't really know for sure which ones are moving and which ones are still.
Open your eyes.
Now, you've come to the same stupendous discovery as our friend Newton, which is that whether lost in the void or here on Earth, we can never know for sure which objects are still and which are moving. You could say that you're standing still and everything is moving around you. Or you could say that you're the only one moving and everything else is still. Actually, physics will yield the same results even when we take a different point of view. Basically, you can only know what your own point of view is telling you, but there's no point of view that's the official absolute one. You only know one. Yoko. So, it's falling in love with this insane idea that led Newton to his very last hit. For you all was clearer. I knew what I wanted. Now I'm more lost than ever. You never know where we are. Yoko. That song changed the history of the world forever. Because, let's imagine a train. In one of the carriages of the train, two athletes are training for the next Olympic tournament of ping pong.
Pong.
What an exciting game. Ball is bouncing back and forth every second. Now, for the ping pong players, the ball is traveling the length of the table. Let's say 1 meter every second. Now, let's imagine that at the same time you're hanging out in your country estate. And then you see the train passing by. Now, thanks to your superhuman vision, you can see the game being played through the windows of the train. Now, if we were to ask you in the field how far the ball traveled during that shot, you might say 10 meters, because the train was moving forward at the same time. So, the position we ascribe to objects and their motion is always dependent on a still reference point. For you in the train, the ping pong table is the reference point, so the ball moves 1 meter with respect to the table. For you in the field, you in the field are the still reference point, so the ball moves 10 meters with respect to the field. And for someone with really good eyesight, on a spaceship, well, the ball would seem to move even more because the Earth's turning at the same time. So, since Aristotle's time, we have thought that some objects were just still and that others were moving. But what Newton actually teaches us is that we can never know for sure which is which. All points of views are correct. And if these different points of views give different positions to the objects, then all these positions are correct as well. So, if you're not really sure where your life is heading, you can sleep better knowing that now no one knows if anything is going anywhere. Isaac Newton, everyone! Now, the next great revolution in physics will be coming from a familiar yet mysterious source. Light. Well, basically, at Newton's time, we thought that light traveled at infinite speed. But a few years later, another superhero of science will manage to compute the actual speed of light. It's very fast, of course, but not infinite. But that really doesn't add up with Newtonian physics. Why? Well, let's come back to our ping pong on a train example. Okay, we've already seen that whether we're on the train or on the field, we won't measure the same distance traveled for the ball, right? Now, an object's speed is simply the distance it travels during a certain lapse of time. So, if the two observers have the same time for the motion, 1 second, but different distances, obviously they don't arrive at the same speed for the moving object. That means that in Newtonian physics, nothing has an absolute speed. Speed is always a question of point of view. So, loyal Newton has set to work to calculate the speed of light under different scenarios, hoping that it will vary and thus, confirm Newton's point of view. But it never does. So that's awkward. And it stays awkward for about 200 years. So, what do? Well, like in any family party, when things get political, we change the subject. Yeah, come on, son, get your head out of the sky and forget about astrophysics. Yeah, Dad, actually, I read this thing today. It's called Darwinism. Oh my God, these little canaries are so cute. I want one. Oh my God, me too. Oh my God, me too. Survival of the fittest. party's over. And it's the beginning of the 20th century. Somewhere among the first cars, the first toasters, and the First World Wars, a young mind of extraordinary genius comes along. Albert Einstein. Einstein will make a simple yet revolutionary proposition.
It's simple, really. The laws of physics should be the same for everyone. So, we should all measure the same speed for light, no matter the speed of our motion.
Instead of Newtonian physics, Einstein proposes a theory of special relativity. Now, in relativity, both observers agree on the speed of light. However, they still don't agree on the distance traveled, right? That means that in order to still end up with the same speed for the object, the two observers will also disagree on the time that the motion took. So, relativity puts an end to the idea of absolute time. Yeah, time is not a relative measure entirely dependent on each observer's point of view, and two observers' timings of the same event might not agree. Excellent excuse to be a bit late at work tomorrow, by the way. Einstein marks the beginning of a new era in science. Space is not separate from time like we used to think, but rather they combine somewhat harmoniously to form what he calls a four-dimensional space-time continuum. Yeah. And since with Newton we can't really situate an object in space with certainty, now with Einstein we can situate an event in time with certainty. Yay. Oh, and this leads to the most famous equation of all time. E equals mc squared. I mean, you've always wanted to know what that means, right? Well, it's happening. Okay, so basically, any object, to increase its speed, to accelerate, needs energy. Like a car needs gas. Now, what Einstein discovered is that the increased energy also makes the object's mass increase. And as we've seen with Newton, the more massive an object gets, the more energy it needs to accelerate some more. But that only starts to matter at speeds that approach the speed of light. For example, at 10% of light speed, an object's mass is only increased by 1%. However, at 90% of light speed, an object's speed is more than doubled. And basically, Einstein figured out that an object's mass would keep increasing more and more as it got close to the speed of light. And the more massive an object would get, the more energy it would need to accelerate some more. And then it would get more massive, need more energy, get more massive, need more energy. Basically, Einstein figured out that an object could never reach the speed of light because by then his speed would have been infinite, and so we would need an infinite mass. And that's just impossible. So, that's how E equals mc squared limits any object with a mass to traveling to speeds largely under the speed of light. Sorry, George Lucas. But Einstein's revolutionary new physics goes much, much further than that. Actually, if time is relative, that means that it doesn't necessarily flow the same way everywhere or for everyone. So, the past and present can, in some way, coexist. Yeah, Einstein was a bit of the hipster, crazy hair, the glasses. But, for example, the sun is 8 light minutes away from Earth. if it were to suddenly disappear, well, it would take 8 minutes for its last light to reach us, and we'd all die terrible deaths. Yay. But it also means that most of the stars we see in the sky are dead, and have been for a long time. But they're so far away from us that their light is only now starting to reach us. So now, thanks to relativity, we know that the deeper we look into space, the further we delve into our past. Getting pretty weird, huh? So, Einstein is really happy with his first theory of relativity. And all the nerds are partying hard. But there's one big issue. Relativity does not agree with gravity. Why? Well, because gravity is proportional to the distance between objects. If you move one of the objects further away, the force on the other diminishes instantly. So, according to relativity, if the sun suddenly disappeared, it would take 8 minutes for its last light to reach Earth, and we'd all die terrible deaths. But the gravitational force that's holding the Earth in orbit would disappear instantly, and Earth would be shot back into the depths of the universe. So, that would mean that gravity is an instantaneous force that thus travels a lot faster than light, which is impossible according to special relativity. Second awkward moment of the show. You know what? Einstein will take 10 years to figure his shit out. And he was a genius, right? So, I mean, if you don't have all your answers yet, just keep that in mind. 10 years later, in 1915, Einstein comes back with a new theory, an even more challenging take on the nature of our universe. General relativity. Okay, I'm telling you, at first this one sounds completely insane, but eventually it starts making almost some sense. Okay.
Well, it's simple, really. Gravity is not a force per se. It's more a kind of consequence of the fact that space-time is not flat. Yes! It's more like a curled up, curvy, kind of mollusk-type thing, bent and deformed by all the mass and energy in the universe.
Okay, at this point, the scientific community just wondered where Einstein came up with that shit.
I'm telling you, it's not a force called gravity that makes the Earth turn around the sun. Actually, Earth and everything else in the universe is just following a straight line trajectory within a curved space.
Okay, so we'd always found Einstein to be a bit cocky, but now we start to wonder if he really has all his bits in the right places.
Real geniuses will always be misunderstood.
Okay, so I guess I'll do the next example. Let's take a flat space-time, like the one we thought we lived in before Einstein came and ruined it all. Flat space-time. Okay. All right. So, this flat space-time, if we take an object, any object, make it travel. You know, the object's got to follow a straight line, like Newton taught us, right? Now, Now, if we take the same flat space-time, but we add some mass, to it. Mass. The mass curves the fabric of space-time. See? Oh yeah, I know. It's underwear with a big mass in it. I see it too. I'm not going to go down that road, but if you feel like it, I'll give you a second. Just go ahead. Done? Okay, so flat space-time curved by the mass. Okay, now if we make the same object travel again, its trajectory is going to be a bit deformed because of the curvature of space-time, right? Okay, other example. A plane is flying over a bunch of hills. Bunch of hills. All right. Now, if we only look at the plane's shadow on the ground, a two-dimensional surface, it looks as though the plane is going in zigzag. See? But if we look in the 3D space where the plane is actually traveling, it's going in a straight line, right? Okay, what that shows is that depending on how many dimensions we take into account, we don't see objects moving the same way. So, it's the same with relativity. Basically, we see the world in 3 dimensions. So for us, the planets go around in circular orbits. What Einstein is trying to tell us with general relativity is that if we could see in 4 dimensions, we'd see the planets going in straight lines. Okay, I've been doing this show for 5 years and I still don't really get that one, so it's fine. But just remember this. It's like a goldfish in his fishbowl. You know, the fish believes that everything in the outside world is curved because of the shape of the bowl. You ever thought of that? Well, what Einstein is trying to tell us with general relativity is that our vision of the world in only 3 dimensions may be just as narrow, but we can never know. But still, thanks to doing a lot more math homework than I ever wished to do, Einstein was able to put together a picture of the universe that we struggle to even visualize. All this decades before the tools to measure any of it even existed. Albert Einstein, everyone. All right, so now we're going to move to a different direction. So before that, I thought, let's relax, let's unwind a bit, but review at the same time. So I got a little something put together, so here we go.
Yo, we've just been on a journey spanning 2,000 years. Don't know about you, but I feel I need a beer. The earth is round, but this table's still flat. And maybe you'll be smarter by the end of this act. My homie Aristotle is what started us off, denying flat believers their time in the light. And then kept Copernicus saying this shit ain't right, opening up the field for an epic face-off. What's in the middle, the earth or the sun? Galileo says I'm gonna go with the sun. When the Pope and his crew set their eye on you, it's hard to get away without a scrape or two. Then we get to the part where everyone's like, what? Is that bed really moving or am I going cray? Some guys bouncing balls on an epic journey. Really no one knows where we are anymore. Try to keep face while our vision adjusts. No absolute space means a new reality. At least this Newton guy gives us gravity. Thanks for the effort, dude, but stuff still kinda sucks. Suddenly some whiskey comes out of the blue. Albert, your new buddy from Germany Sublime. About time I dare say before chaos ensues. And finally he nails it, there's no absolute time. The more answers they give, the more questions we got. 4 dimension space-time, what the hell is that? Always more theories, as if life ain't hard enough. At this point it feels like, can't we just huff and puff? Anyway, after all this, we are still pretty lost. What lies ahead for us, and where the hell's Wally? This is really all I got in terms of rapid chops. I hope y'all are ready for the grand finale. Musical break! So buckle up, people, it's one last bumpy ride. At least if you can make it, you can say you survived.
All right, ready for our last chapter? Woo! Okay. Act 3. Where do we go from here? Well, it's now the beginning. beginning of the 20th century. Einstein just blew everyone's mind away with his general relativity. Concept of space and time held dearly since antiquity have been thrown away. We don't really know where we are, when we are, what's going on, what time it is. Great. Now, scientists had always seen the universe as something fixed, eternal, infinite. You know, space and time were this kind of stage on which the rest of the events occurred, but without actually influencing the stage itself. But since general relativity arrived, space and time have become dynamic entities. The curvature of space-time influences the motion of objects, but the mass and energy of those objects also influences the curvature. So scientists start looking back at the universe and wondering if it's really all that still. I mean, if you can't rely on space and time anymore, there's not really much to hold on to in this world. And this last chapter begins like none of my high school science classes ever, on a midsummer's night under the stars. It's there that we meet our last scientist, American astronomer Edwin Hubble. Hubble will manage to measure the distance separating Earth from hundreds of different stars and galaxies. Close enough. Edwin Hubble, everyone! And thanks to that, Hubble is able to kind of measure the motion of everything else around us in the universe. At first he's thinking everything must move around kind of randomly in space. But what he realizes is that actually most stars and galaxies are moving away from Earth. Worse, the farthest galaxies are the ones moving away the fastest. So Hubble has discovered that the universe is expanding. You know, at first the expansion is really kind of a shock to the scientist community because we'd always seen the universe as something fixed, eternal, blah, blah, blah. But expansion was probably real good news, especially to counterbalance the pull of gravity. Remember that guy, Gravity? Always putting a hole in every new theory? Well, guess who's back? And this time, the problem is that gravity is a force that's always attracted. Basically, it's like alcohol at a party. You know, an average house party, you know, things start out, you know, okay. People are doing their thing, you know, each in their own little spot. It's going well. Well, the more they drink, the less they seem to care about personal space. And eventually, the strangest combinations can occur. Same for our universe governed by the pull of gravity. Gravity is always trying to crunch us together. So, if you don't like the idea of all the stars, the planets, and the galaxies piling down upon us like a bunch of drunks at a party that's gone too far, you can thank the expansion of the universe. Now, the expansion of the universe leads many scientists and people to believe, well, the universe must be infinite, right? Wrong. The universe would be more like a finite space without borders. Example. Okay. So, surface of Earth. It's a two-dimensional surface, okay? Latitude, longitude. Now, I can start from any point on Earth and walk forward in a straight line. And I'm never going to meet any insurmountable obstacles, and eventually I'll end back up in my starting point. So, the surface of Earth is a two-dimensional surface that's not infinite, but that doesn't have any borders. Well, the universe would be kind of the same thing, but in 3 dimensions. Edwin Hubble, everyone! Hey, that was our last scientist. That means it's almost over. You almost made it through. Rock on. We've come a long way, you know? I mean, from Aristotle, Galileo, Newton, Einstein, and Hubble. Huh. But, of course, that's only half the story. What if, like any good scientist, we took a different point of view? What if, like them, we challenged the status quo? Well, we'd find maybe here, behind Hubble, Henrietta Leavitt, the astronomer that invented the technique to measure a star's distance using its brightness, a technique that Hubble would use to discover the expansion of the universe. Or maybe here, behind Einstein, Emily Noether, physicist and mathematician, considered to be the greatest mathematical genius of her time by Albert Einstein himself. Noether's theorem is as important to modern physics as special relativity. Maybe here, behind Newton, Émilie du Châtelet, physicist and translator of Newton's works into French, a translation that's still used to this day. Maybe here, behind Galileo, Maria Kunitz, an astronomer that corrected Kepler's works on the trajectory of the planet in orbit, a work that will later be used by a certain Isaac Newton to put together his theory of gravity. And maybe here, behind Aristotle, Hypatia, mathematician, philosopher, and director of the Neoplatonist school at Alexandria. She's the first known female Western mathematician. And that's not even her real face, because they didn't think it worth their while to immortalize her while she was alive. And behind them, we could think about the hundreds of women hired as human calculators, Google that later, fascinating, that enabled a bunch of dudes to gather a bunch of Nobel Prizes. So, for all this invisible work, for all these forgotten faces, for all these unheard names, one last time, everyone. So, thanks to all these men and women, we get here, to an expanding universe in a four-dimensional relative space-time continuum. Okay, now, there's still one question left, right? What's the world coming to? Where is expansion taking us? Will the world ever end? Oh, I guess that's 3 questions. Well, I mean, physics has found 3 answers. 3 models for the fate of our universe. All right. Remember our dynamic duo, gravity expansion, that holds the world in balance? All right, so, if gravity is like alcohol, let's imagine I'm having a party, and I've invited all my friends. Okay, I'm also going to invite all my social media followers. Yeah, I'm very famous. Now, party's going very well. Everyone's having fun, you know. Things are going great. Everyone's dancing, having a good time. Now, if gravity is like alcohol, you know, attracting people together, then expansion could be like someone farting on the dance floor. You know, everyone steps back a bit, balances stuff out. All right, so this party can end in 3 very different ways, according to modern physics, of course. Version 1, Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. Party, drunk people, dancing. At first, everyone stops dancing and leaves the room because of the disgusting smell. After a few moments, the stench starts having a surprisingly arousing effect. Oh, the guests die smothered together. Scientifically speaking, this is what would happen if gravity is way stronger than expansion. Eventually, the universe will stop expanding, start contracting, and we'll all end up crushed in a tiny point. Yay. Option 2. Ice Age. Party, drunk people, dancing. The dance floor starts reeking with the stench of putrefaction. It's a really bad one. So bad, in fact, that no one dares come forward and admit it was them. So things get real awkward real fast. People start leaving the dance floor, leaving the room, leaving the party even. Because it's just so disgusting, you can almost taste it, you know? And the awkwardness just never goes away. I mean, these people never speak a word to each other again. They all go on their lives and never meet any other friends and die on their own in the cold void of a friendless world. Yeah, obviously this is quite the opposite of the first one, right? It's what would happen if expansion is way stronger than gravity. Well, eventually we'll expand so much that we'll lose our sun and freeze to death on our own. Yay. Thankfully, there's option 3. Free Willy 2. The Adventure Home. The guests, being neither too drunk to jump each other's bones or too disgusted to just run away, kind of just, step back a little, take a bit of space. That's okay too. And party ends well, no awkwardness there. People want to have beautiful lives, perfect families, splendid careers, while being invited less and less to parties of that kind. You get older. And it's in this safe distance created between one another that they become fully functioning adults, tailored to the needs of modern society. Going from a 3-bedroom apartment with 8 roommates in the plateau to a house with a lawn and pool in Greenfield Park. Yeah, so option 3 is the only one that allows for an eternal living universe. Basically, it's what would happen if gravity is just strong enough to slow down expansion without ever stopping it altogether. The universe will keep expanding ever so slowly, forever, without stopping or contracting. But, we'd all end up in Greenfield Park, so... Your choice, really. Now, that's all well and good, 3 choices, but it would be nice to know which one is true, right? Well, to know that, we need to know who is stronger between gravity and expansion. Now, expansion is pretty easy to calculate. It's got to do with the rate at which everything is moving away from us in space. That's okay. Gravity, unsurprisingly, is a different story. To measure its total force, we need to add up all the mass in the universe. So, here's the question.
Is there enough matter in the universe?
Well, scientists have done it. They've added it all up, and okay, let's say we needed 100 bucks of matter to arrive at option 3 and have an eternally lasting universe. Here's how much we've found up to now, adding up all we can see and adding a bunch more just for luck.
$0.10 in Canadian Tire.
So yeah, we're pretty much screwed. But it's okay because we'll have destroyed Earth way before that. So, go ahead with the parties, the drinking, the farting. Enjoy. This is where we come from, without all this, there's no sun, no water, no us here tonight. Remember in the beginning, we thought we were oh so special. Earth at the center of the world. A tiny world enclosed within the solar system. A universe that had always existed, space and time were absolute. Good times. Now we know that Earth is anything but at the center of the world. That actually our size is pretty negligible, especially considering the 100 billion galaxies, each made up of 100 billion stars, home to billions of solar systems just like our own. Today we know that the universe had a beginning, and that it will probably also have an end. But you know, this place we inhabit, on an ordinary little rock, revolving around a medium-sized star, in one of the arms of the spiral of the Milky Way, in a corner or another of a universe that's so gigantic that even a ray of light cannot cross it all and come back to its starting point before the universe itself had died out. Our tiny world really has nothing special. Except maybe this, that people devoted their lives, their time, their short journeys on its surface, figuring out what our world is made of, how it moves, how we see it, where it comes from, and where it's going. And that, the fact that because of them we know more about the world, even if that makes us just stardust in a vast void. That's pretty special. And that I believe in. Ultimately, that's the most important thing. I believe in us.